And this is why people vote for Trump. They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. On the trans issue, America is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, absolutely alone in the world now, an outlier country. Last month, England's National Health Service announced that there's not enough evidence to support the safety or clinical effectiveness of puberty blockers for third graders, and that they were going to stop fumbling around with children's privates, because that's Prince Andrew's job.
Have you ever noticed how reality may occasionally snatch the story out of people's hands? That's precisely what happened when Bill Maher, yes, that Bill Maher, praised the liberal utopia of Canada as a woke vision that everyone ought to emulate. Using his signature metaphor, Maher, a lifelong liberal, said that conservatives are the brakes while liberals are the throttle pedal. He's usually okay with pushing forward, unless we're hurtling off a cliff. Furthermore, he contends that progressives have recently exceeded common sense on matters such as gender ideology and unrestricted borders. Even the NHS in the UK, which isn't exactly a conservative organization, is now rejecting children's puberty blockers because of insufficient data. Maher emphasized this change, adding a crude joke about Prince Andrew just for kicks. There is a serious issue underlying the laughter, though. The left's veneration of Canada ignores the harsh realities.
Canada was where every woke white college kid wearing pajama pants outdoors who'd had it up to here with America's racist patriarchy dreamt of living someday. I mean, besides Gaza. There's only one problem with thinking everything's better in Canada. It's not. Not anymore, anyway. Last year, Canada added 1.3 million people, which is a lot in 1 year, the equivalent of the US adding 11 million migrants in 1 year. And now they're experiencing a housing crisis even worse than ours. And we're sleeping in tents.
Canada currently faces a 3.5 million home shortage by 2030, after adding 1.3 million people last year, or 11 million in US terms. What was the outcome? Rising tent cities, families being priced out, and skyrocketing housing expenses. Perhaps it's time for others to give up on the snow globe delusion, as Maher does. Does it sound familiar? Indeed. For all the American cities that have been preaching the same open border, open everything message, it's deja vu. Maher uses his trademark wit to perfection. Barbie wouldn't be able to buy her dream home if she relocated to Winnipeg, he laughs. And Ken would be working at Tim Hortons. Depressingly realistic, but funny.
The median price of a home here is $346,000. In Canada, converted to US dollars, it's $487,000. If Barbie moved to Winnipeg, she wouldn't be able to afford her dream house, and Ken would be working at Tim Hortons.
In the US, the average home costs around $350,000. In Canada, almost $500,000. And that's the national average. It can range from $800,000 to more than $1 million in places like Toronto or Vancouver. Simple. These are hardly the prices of paradise. The prices are panicked. And yet the woke crowd keeps insisting that Canada is the promised land. Maher's point is painfully simple. If America adopts Canada's approach, we won't be building a utopia. We'll be constructing an eviction notice for half the nation.
And because of mortgage debt, Canada has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio of any G7 nation. I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad. So does their vaunted healthcare system, which ranks dead last among high-income countries in access to primary healthcare and ability to see a doctor in a day or two. And it's not for lack of spending. Of the 30 countries with universal coverage, Canada spends over 13% of its economy on it, which is a lot of money for free healthcare.
Then comes the worst part. Canada has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio among the G7 countries. In other words, they have more debt than everybody else in the club. Even Maher chuckles and admits that he has no idea what that means, but he knows it sounds awful. And he's right, it's not good. What about the free healthcare that Canadians adore and boast about? Maher gives a sneak peek at that too. In terms of access to primary care, Canada's universal healthcare system turns out to be the least effective among high-income countries. Do you need a doctor's appointment in a day or two? Best of luck. People are spending 13% of their whole economy and waiting weeks or even months to fix that disaster. Too much for nothing.
Look, I'm not saying Canada still isn't a great country. It is, but those aren't paradise numbers. If Canada was an apartment, the lead feature might be America adjacent. And if America was a rental car, Canada would be America or similar. And again, honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, because I've always enjoyed you. But I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right.
This is not a smear campaign for conservatism. The quiet part is being said out loud by Bill Maher, a man of the left. Perhaps it's time to pay attention if a man like him is warning you. This isn't simply a humorous tirade. The United States is being held up as a mirror. In essence, Maher is asking, hey liberals, is this the model you really want? Because if you believe that Canada has it all figured out, you haven't been listening.
At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness. Like the saga of Canadian shop teacher Kayla Lemieux, whose pronouns are she, her, and those. Kayla is now back to being a guy named Kerry, but 2 years ago when they showed up to teach children, the progressive high school they taught at said that they, the school, not the person. Really, you couldn't have found another word. We were using that one. Anyway, okay. They were committed to a safe environment for gender expression. Safe for who? What about the children?
The moral of the narrative is clear. It's possible to go too far to the left. When you do, you lose more than just conservatives. You lose the center. And when the middle disappears, you hand the opposite side the keys. This isn't a right-wing catchphrase. It's the seriousness of politics. We've seen it before. Once the epitome of edgy liberalism, look at Joe Rogan. Because he poses simple questions, he's now labeled right-wing. Elon Musk built electric vehicles and launched rockets into orbit. Yet he's branded conservative too, simply because he refuses to bow to the altar of woke ideology. Maher isn't becoming a MAGA man. As his group rushes off a cliff, he's simply standing still. And yes, from that angle, he looks conservative.
What about the equipment in that shop class? There was once a weirdo D-list movie producer in the 60s named Russ Meyer, who made low-budget B movies like Faster Pussycat Kill Kill and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, always featuring women who look like this. His movies played in houses and were featured in Hustler and Playboy. Okay, fine, but who says no when it comes to huge, ridiculous, let's save that for the kids.
And the warning story is Canada. Remember Kayla Lemieux, the Canadian shop teacher who insisted on teaching children despite having, let's say, unmissable prosthetics? Maher highlights that too. Russ Meyer used to make low-budget films with cartoonishly proportioned women, but those films were deemed too explicit for children, he jokes. That's what's considered progress in the classroom in 2023. He's not wrong. The essence of the problem is that it's chaos posing as compassion. Inclusion is not achieved when everyone has the power to define reality and insist that everyone else follow suit. You get confusion instead. After asking who exactly was teaching them that day, the students were left bewildered. Adults are so afraid of offending people that they can't speak the truth. This isn't progress, it's theater, and not the good kind. The audience is children, and it's a tragic comedy of contradictions.
This is why people vote for Trump. They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. On the trans issue, America is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, absolutely alone in the world now, an outlier country. Last month, England's National Health Service announced that there's not enough evidence to support the safety or clinical effectiveness of puberty blockers for third graders, and that they were going to stop fumbling around with children's privates, because that's Prince Andrew's.
Maher makes it very clear. Enlightenment can go too far left. When it does, you get backlash. People vote for Trump for this reason. That's not a joke. That's the punchline. Trump didn't win people over because they were suddenly racist or desirous of disruption. They acted out of frustration, with endless wokeness, gender lectures, self-flagellation, and ideological policing. Instead of working to improve the nation, Democrats became a reprimanding committee obsessed with revising history, mocking police, and policing pronouns. Lectures don't win votes. Leadership does. And the left failed to realize that even many liberals are waking up to this.
So too with all the other good place countries, in direct opposition to America's choice to affirm children's wishes on switching gender, no matter the age or psychiatric history. The far left, which always like to use, well, Europe does it. Yeah, no, that doesn't work on this one anymore.
They didn't leave the left left them. Logic became a hate crime, biology became optional, and facts became offensive in this strange parallel world. Maher's voice is powerful precisely because it doesn't come from a right-wing echo chamber. It comes from inside the house. And he's not just talking about gender politics, he's also talking about immigration. He notes that since 2010, Sweden, another supposedly progressive utopia, has welcomed more than 1.5 million migrants. Currently, 20% of people in Sweden are foreign-born. And what came next? Gang warfare, the highest number of fatal shootings in Europe, and a breakdown in the educational system. That's data, not xenophobia.
Or on immigration. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking, and it has Europe's highest rate of gangland killings. And one result is that the far-right parties are in the government now there for the first time. To which liberals say blaming immigrants for the rising crime rate is racist. Yeah, but is it true? Of course it's true. It's not a coincidence the quality of life went down after the Somali gangs started a drug turf war using hand grenades. Calling it racist doesn't solve the problem. It hands future elections to someone who will solve the problem and who, I promise, you're not going to like.
And when leftists say blaming immigrants is racist, Maher asks the question no one else dares. Yes, but is it true? Because feelings don't change facts, and pretending they do doesn't solve problems. It only ensures they'll get worse, until people finally lose it and give power to someone who promises to fix it. And as Maher warns, you're not going to like that person. He's right. Across Europe, far-right parties are rising as people grow tired of being misled by elites who claim everything's fine while communities fall apart. Voters respond to what they see: rising crime, soaring costs, and leaders more focused on virtue signaling than solutions. The US isn't far behind. The border is a crisis zone, fentanyl is destroying lives, and families are burying their kids while the left frames it all as compassion. That's not compassion, it's negligence. When empathy ignores reality, it becomes harmful. Maher cuts through the noise with a hard truth. If America can't control its borders, it can't protect its people. And without protection, there's no peace, just chaos dressed up as progress. His monologue isn't just about Canada, it's a warning for the West. When ideology overtakes reality, everything breaks. Housing, education, borders. And ordinary people end up paying the price. This isn't just about them, it's about us, and what happens when a nation drifts too far into fantasy.